order. Please rise for Mayor Michael Fougere.
Please be seated. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. This is a special night for many reasons. I'm going to ask that in recognition of the passing of our colleague, Councillor Hinks, that we all rise for a moment of silence, please. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen in the gallery and those watching on television, this is an extraordinary event that took place over the last few days. There's been many comments made by our former colleague, Councillor Hinks. I'm going to ask that each member of council say a few words about Mr. Hinks, Councillor Hinks. So we'll begin with Ward 1. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I didn't know Terry Hinks when I came to council. I knew of Terry Hinks because everyone knew who he was. And so right away, I noticed that he didn't even need the microphone because when he spoke, his booming voice would ring out across this chamber. And as time went on, I noticed that everything he spoke about and was for was caring about others. He was a very caring person, especially for those who needed help or were in need. And so my thoughts of him were that besides having that deep, booming voice, he was a gentle man, and he will be missed.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Hawkins.
I think it was about the second or third meeting of this council, nearly 4 years ago. My seat was at the other end of the semicircle, next to the gallery, where Terry's seat is now. Terry sat next to me, where Councillor Findura is. I was a new kid on the block, a little bookish, a little too much university. Terry was an enormous man, a tough guy from North Central, honed at Scott Collegiate and on the Rams football field. We couldn't have been more different. I think that Terry was a little suspicious of me, and I was more than a little nervous of him. If my memory serves me well, the motion before council that night concerned the Mama-Wataton Centre. I spoke in favor, but it must have been clear to Terry that I barely knew what I was talking about. He loved the project. Then, in the middle of my talk, in a booming stage whisper and a smile as big as this whole chamber, he blurted out, "Hawkins, have you ever been north of Saskatchewan Drive?" Everyone laughed, and I laughed loudest of all, and that's when I knew that I'd made Terry's team. Well, Terry, you're on God's team now. The struggle and the pain and the suffering, which you bore so nobly, are behind you. At practices now, Terry, it'll be God calling the plays, and he has chosen you to be on the offensive line, protecting him into all eternity. Goodbye, my friend. May you rest in peace. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you. A few words to share about Terry. From a distance, Terry Hinks was intimidating. He had the build of a professional wrestler and a hairdo to match. His reputation preceded him. It's hard to say where fact ends and legend begins when I think of all the folklore I've heard of Terry's youth. But suffice it to say that there was a lot of people of Terry's vintage that knew of Terry even if they didn't know him personally. Terry was really proud. He grew up north of Dudney and made no apologies for who he was or where he came from. He loved our city, and what I really appreciate is he loved our city for the good parts of it, but he also loved our city for the blemishes too. He really accepted Regina and loved Regina for what it was. Terry had his own opinions. We didn't always see eye to eye when it came to decisions at this table here. And Terry was never shy to let me know if he didn't agree with something I had said at council or in the media. But whenever he told me that he didn't agree, there was no malice in his tone. To me, being challenged by Terry was actually a sign of respect. It was never undermining. The thing I'll remember most about Terry is that he had character. What he said is what he meant. The Terry that people knew, that was actually Terry. There wasn't another hidden Terry. He was really, Terry was Terry. And I think Regina's less without him. And my condolences for his family. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Worship. Colleagues, no, this is definitely a sad evening this evening that I actually had the privilege of meeting Terry about 35 years ago, that Terry used to be involved in organizing racquetball tournaments down on South Pasqua, and I always remember, Terry, that there used to be a rule in racquetball. It's called a let, that if somebody stood in front of you, you're supposed to let, not drive forward. But myself, as well as many others, could always wear his scars of bruises, so you knew who played Terry during that game. And but the one thing that I remember back then, and I'll tie it to that, when Terry got passionate and excited about a game, especially sports, his eyes lit up to a size that, I don't think I've never seen that kind of emotion and brightness flow through your eyes. And then when we got on council here together, I remember a lot of times when community event organizers, especially in sports, would come to do a presentation and ask for some support. And Terry always had sort of a historic kind of memory of when the football teams got started, and his passion when he used to sneak into Exhibition Park, now Evraz Place now, but you'd always see those big eyes light up, his sort of excitement and joy and happiness, and he just really had a passion and a commitment. And it's going to be something certainly missed. And like I say, being first-term councillor, I had to look forward to mentoring under some of the pros like Terry. So as Councillor Hawkins said, he's going to be sadly missed, and I hope he's at peace, because I know he's had a tough struggle the last little while. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Fundura.
Thank you, Worship and colleagues. For the last while, I sat beside Terry, and you can see that he had passion. The struggles he was dealing with, he was tough. The first time I ever met Terry, we walked into city police to the 2009 election, after the election, and Terry's words come out and says, "This is the first time I walked into the front door." I quite couldn't understand what he meant by that. But he was honest with who he was, what he did, and what he did for his family, his colleagues, his ward, and just the city, and kids. He was very passionate about children. Every time I stood up to speak, and Terry would always kind of in his little voice would say, "Fundura needs translations. Ask me, I'll translate for you." This was a little running joke we had with each other. And that told me that I was his friend. And a few times, I think Councillor Young kind of thought that Terry was picking on me, but that was our friendship. There was a difference between Terry. And I felt like a little kid when I came in 2009, and he was a big guy. But he took me under his wing, and here we are, and we started around together. And like I said, he was honest about things. So condolences to his families, all his friends, everybody who was looking forward to, and he was looking forward to seeing that stadium. And I wish that he could have, the guy would have given him a couple more years just to see that stadium. He would fight for it really hard. It's your worship, again, to condolences to the family, and everyone around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fundura. Councillor Murray?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. You know, when I was first elected in 2003, there was a couple of us that were elected, Councillor Bryce and Councillor Flagel and Councillor Hinks and myself. And I was taken, just how fortunate I was to get to be a part of this group and to be a part of this team. And when I think about Terry, on the opportunities I had with him driving around in the inner city, through our community, through my home, where I raised my family, through North Central, he would show me. That's where I lived in grade 4. This is where we lived in grade 5. We moved twice in grade 6. He came from an extremely challenged childhood, moved around immensely, was from school to school. And yet through all that adversity, he would tell me about his time at Dojack, and he told me about the times he went to the police station through the back door a couple of times. Through all of that, it was football. It was sport that kept him on the straight and narrow. And it was that sport that became his passion. And you know, I think he's going to have the very best seat in the house looking down at the new stadium. He'll be right over top the 50-yard line, right over top the very center. He'll be watching everything that goes on. And I know that he would have a tear in his eye right now to know how much this community cares for him. And frankly, to hold a funeral in the Brandt Center, I would suggest is telling of just who the man was. Terry, you will be missed. I loved you. You're a good man.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Bryce? Councillor O'Donnell, would you like to speak?
Earlier today, I read a piece that Daryl Davis wrote, and Daryl called Terry a softie. That's really the only Terry I knew. So for 52 years, we were friends, and I want to share a couple of qualities with you, if I could. Men are not very good at stating affection, telling each other how they feel. But for 9 years, we coached high school football together on 2 different schools. When I started at O'Neill, he was my first call to be the first coach I wanted around me. When we went to Miller, he was also my first call. What he did with the kids is he made sure each and every one of them knew how he felt about them, how he respected them. He was positive, he was emotional, and if you became his friend, you were his friend for life. Later on, actually not that many years ago, I encountered a few people that had been friends with Terry back from the Scott days and North Central days. And they told me a few stories. One of them was that to each of them, I'll call them people who were a little down on their luck, Terry went to them. He made sure that they had some food, or he made sure they had a place to stay, or he made sure that they had money in their pocket. He did that privately, extremely privately, because no one knew that. Loyalty is spelled T-E-R-R-Y. It is followed closely by compassion.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Bryce?
I don't think there's one word that I can use to describe Terry, so I've actually written down a few. Brave, proud, strong, outspoken, and most of all, kind. Terry was one of those people that you're lucky to have in your life. Terry was so proud of his family, Andrew and Kayla, Darlene, Peyton, Eric, Philly. All of you brought such joy to his life. I'm a better person for knowing Terry, and I want to thank him for that. I'm going to miss his 6:30 a.m. calls, his laugh. Terry was our gentle giant. He would give you the shirt off his back if it was the last shirt he had. Rest in peace, Terry. You deserve it. And thank you for being a friend.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Councillor Flagel?
Thank you. And yeah, hard on the outside, soft as a marshmallow on the inside. And Terry and I worked together at Century 21, so I'd see him every day for probably 10 or 11 years. almost every day. And the last 2 years, of course, with his illness, he's dropped off and had to back away. But even through those times, and I'm sure some of you can remember, if I'd walk into the room and he was feeling good, he'd be ripping me. So I knew he was feeling better. I thought that was a good way. I could take it. I took it and I gave it right back to him. And it almost sounded like we were fighting, but it was just one of those things that we did. And we were both good with it. Phoned me, picked me up for a session to go to or a function. And then he would go on about me having free meals and free tickets and where's my next supper and where am I going. But every time I was doing one of those, he was right there with me eating the same free meal that I was. So I don't know how that all happened. So words of wisdom were always something that he had. He would console a person if need be. Very opinionated, and believe it or not, the odd profanity would come out of his mouth. Couldn't believe that, but it happened. You know, I said on TV the other day, Terry was proud of Regina before Regina was proud of itself, and I stand by that. And it was a little different when that same newscast was on, seeing Terry how he was the last year or two, and then all of a sudden seeing him putting a lawn sign in 4 years ago. That's how we need to remember Terry. Big, strong, burly, overweight, didn't care, ate, drank, whatever was going on, shirt off his back, like Sharon said, and that was it. And he was proud, as proud could be, of council, the citizens of Regina, the city, the sports icons, the teams, everybody that went, but mostly he was proud of his grandchildren, his son, his family, and he had a personal care, I don't know what to call her, I don't want to say her word, but had a lady that was absolutely instrumental in making sure that he was well looked after and well cared for, and she knows who she is. And I just want to say, rest well, friend. You're in a better place. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Flake. I'd like to join and just say a few words. To start with, the deepest condolences to the Hinks family. The outpouring that I've heard from so many people over the past few days is really heartwarming to know that everybody in the city knows Terry in some fashion and has some good things to say about him. I'm very proud to have served with him on City Council. I know we all have. He was a remarkable man. He represented all that really is good in our city. He has a heart as big as our city. He loved our city. He wore his heart in his sleeve each and every day. A remarkable person. And he's the strongest person I've ever known. And if we know what he went through, we understand the long illness with cancer, chemotherapy, all the tests being done. Remarkably strong individual, both in physically and in spirit. Just incredible. He talked a lot about football, the Rams, and how that turned his life around. Other members of council mentioned that, but to me that tells you who Terry is. He is a person of a great honesty and never forgets a friend. But he talked about his life being put back on track. He talked about North Central, the difficulties there. He did a lot of work in North Central we don't know about. He would never, ever talk about. But talk about to the people at North Central Family Center what he did for them, and it was just incredible. So I remember him as a caring man, a huge man, great spirit. He was full throttle all the time, and what a wonderful person to be around. For those in the audience and those who are on TV watching, the funeral will be held this Thursday, 1:30 at the Branch Center. Terry, Godspeed, and rest in peace. Thank you. I believe the city manager has a few words to say as well. Mr. Holden?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to thank you and the members of City Council for those moving tributes. I'd like to offer just a few words on behalf of the administration. The passing of a long-standing City Councillor, Terry Hinks, offers us an important opportunity to reflect. A municipal administration can only succeed with the support of a dedicated and committed council. Community service of any kind is a tremendous gift. Community service as an elected representative is particularly special. Those willing to run for office help make our city better, and they deserve our humble gratitude. On behalf of my colleagues, I express that gratitude to Councillor Hinks, and I offer our deepest sympathies to his family. We thank him for his years of leadership and service to our community, to the City of Regina. He will be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Holden. Well, now comes the time for us to get down to some business while we're here tonight. So I'd like to have a motion to accept the agenda. Councillor Young, have a seconder, please.
Second, Your Worship.
Councillor Murray, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have minutes from the meeting held September 26th. Councillor Hawkins, you move concurrence. Seconder. Councillor Fundura. Any discussion? Any errors or omissions to speak of? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have a light agenda tonight compared to our previous months, but we do have some delegations. We have Chad Jedlick and Blair Forrester on report 123 on the Planning Commission meeting. Please come forward and tell us who you represent. You have 5 minutes for your presentation. There may be questions afterwards.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of City Council. My name is Chad Jedlick. I'm the General Manager of Residential Land Development with Harbour Developments. With me at the podium is Mr. Blair Forrester of Forrester Projects. We are basically here tonight to provide our support for the rezoning application and to thank administration for their work on the file and to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Other questions of the delegation? Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks so much, gentlemen. I'll just go into a little bit about what's before us. So what is the ask, if you don't mind, in terms of the report?
The ask is to rezone the first phase of development within the Aurora Concept Plan, which forms part of the Southeast Neighborhood Plan, which were both recently adopted by City Council.
Thanks very much. So this is a commercial development?
It's commercial development. The zoning would be MAC. The first phase would be zoned MAC. The balance of the land would be MAC with the holding overlay, which allows us to plan out the area knowing what the setbacks will be and the characteristics required for that particular zone, but does not actually implement the zoning.
Thanks very much. I always want to make sure that people understand what's going on. So MAC is major arterial, so the type of store that would be in here would be a larger format?
That's correct. It would be part of the regional retail development, which is consistent with the concept plan and the neighborhood plan.
Okay, so, and then there's a overlay zone, or in other words, there's a holding pattern on another set of this property that is also major arterial that you would come back before council for future development?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Are there other? Councillor Fraser?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks for your presentation. Could you just speak to timeline, when you think this will be built out?
The timeline, our first commercial tenant would look to open in the fall of next year, and so we would undertake some topsoil stripping this fall as well as some rough grading, and then through the fall we would be working with the city to gain full approval on the engineering drawings that would allow us to get into the underground servicing in the spring and then construct the surface works through the summer.
Okay, do you see this as being part of a complete neighborhood at some point, once the residential piece is built out south of it?
Through Your Worship, yes, the development, as I mentioned before, was part of the Southeast Neighborhood Plan, which is the overall comprehensive plan for the Southeast Neighborhood lands. The nice thing about this first stage of development is it actually provides a connection from Victoria Avenue through Zinkin Road down to Tower Road, which will pass by the Ball Diamonds and then connect down to the Greens on Gardner, whereas without this development, Tower Road would actually turn to a cul-de-sac at the north end, so we think it's actually good timing.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Other speakers? There are none. Thank you very much. You can return to the gallery, and now we'll look at report CR 16-123, which is a zoning amendment application for the portion of Victoria Avenue East Concept Plan, Aurora Phase 1. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks very much. If I could have a seconder, I'll speak to this.
Seconder, Councillor Burnett.
Thank you. So we've already okayed the plan. I think what you heard from the delegation is really what is the more immediate plan. There'll be some stores going in, there'll be some road development, all of the underground will go in here. So what you're being asked to approve today is that, in fact, major arterial commercial can start development on a piece of this property, but you're also going to put an overlay zone or a holding pattern on another piece of the property, also to be called major arterial. In other words, more larger stores can follow. This is consistent with the decision we made last month, and Planning Commission saw this as being also part of the consistent plan. Seek your concurrence, please.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speakers to the report. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. A question for administration. It points out that transit's not going to work here for the immediate future. Could you just speak to that? Thanks.
Ms. Harlock.
Through you, Your Worship, as this area develops into the future, we'll be looking at the Southeast Neighbourhood Plan that identifies a full transit operation that will take place. So as the area develops, we'll be looking at how transit can be supported within this area. I might ask if Mr. Searle has any additional comments.
Mr. Searle.
Your Worship, as development proceeds in the area is identified as an urban center within the OCP, and a part of that will be a planned transit node that would be centrally located within this area, which would facilitate passenger movement between on the transit system.
Okay, and can someone speak to timeline? Thanks. How long do we, OCP talks about when we build a new neighborhood, let's make it a complete neighborhood. When would we consider this a complete neighborhood? Thanks.
Ms. Harlock.
Through Your Worship, as the report indicates on page 4, it's sometimes hard to get an exact timing because it does depend on the pace of development. As development takes place quicker, then we'd be able to advance these types of things quicker. But of course, as indicated in the report, we need to see the area develop. There's other cells that need to be developed with respect to the transit node and those sorts of things. So we're hoping that we'll see the development as quickly as possible, but it will really depend on how quickly there's uptake.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Other speakers to the report? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Move on to the bylaw. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Your Worship. I move, seconded by Councillor Fraser, that bylaw number 2016-65 be introduced and read a first time.
Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council has completed its consideration of the associated report and will now consider the related bylaw 216-65 respecting the proposed rezoning for subdivision and development of lands within the East Victoria Concept Plan. If there is anyone present in the gallery this evening who would wish to address council on this matter, please indicate so and await direction from the mayor. There appears to be some interest, Your Worship.
If you could please come forward and identify who you represent. You have 5 minutes for your presentation, and there may be questions afterwards.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to take a moment to say my condolences with the Hinks family, no matter how much we didn't see eye to eye. I didn't think I'd be having a hard time with this, but speaking on the subject at hand about Aurora, I want to make clear. First of all, I guess my name is Chad Novak. I'm here on behalf of the Saskatchewan Taxpayers Advocacy Group. I am also a candidate for the Ward 4 Regina City Council coming up starting next week. And the Southeast Neighborhood Plan simply was not given enough public consultation. I have made that clear on a number of occasions. Last council meeting, I made that very clear. Unfortunately, we continue to bulldoze these things through, rubber stamp them, whatever. The fact of the matter is the public has not had an opportunity to have consultation on this. Here is a perfect opportunity for council to hopefully, now that there's 3 readings of the bylaw, all it takes is one person to vote against. It has to go to the next council meeting, which will thankfully allow next city council, whoever it may be, to vote on this and hopefully have some real public consultation on the situation. So I would ask, I would beg that at least one city councillor please vote against this on at least the third reading, but all three readings preferably, because I feel that public deserves a say in this. I have long advocated for that. I will continue to advocate for that. I do not think timing is of the essence in this situation. It's a commercial development. Commercial can go on forever and ever and ever. I understand that, unfortunately, the way that commercial developments happen in our city, they are literally willy-nilly done. There is no 235K, 300K, 350K. There's no population staging for that process, which is truly unfortunate because we have situations like this where a major commercial development can happen concurrent with probably 30 different others if they wanted to, and all of them could get preferential treatment. And obviously, the businesses behind those commercial developments probably aren't being told and aren't being kept in the fold of it. So some of them are going to get left in the dust. And we're seeing that on an ongoing basis in some of our developments. I know in my area here, for example, in the Greens, I was looking so much forward to, I can't remember what it was called, the Gateway, I believe it was, and to this day it still hasn't started. But yet across the street, we've given ultimate approval and what a surprise to the company that's behind this situation. And they're going hard. So my concern is what happens with Gateway. You know, these unfortunate situations where lesser known developers, lesser known companies are getting the short end of the stick. And it's because of the public consultation process. It's because of our commercial development process. It's because of a lot of things that need to be addressed. And I hope and I pray tonight that someone will stand up for what is right here and make sure that we can allow the next city council to make the final say on this situation. I will now open it to any questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions of the delegation? There are none. You can return to the gallery and we'll proceed with the vote on first reading. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Your Worship. I move, seconded by Councillor Flagel, that bylaw number 2016-65 be read a second time.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I move, seconded by Councillor Vendura, that Council hereby consents to bylaw number 2016-65 going to third reading at this meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? It is not passed third reading, so we'll go to the next sitting of City Council. We'll move on to communications and related reports. We have a communication from Ward Peters related to a medical clinic at 4028 Dudney Avenue. It is a communication. I believe that they are available for questions if need be. I believe, so if Ward Peters is here and Chris Kaling, hope I got that right, if you could come forward and identify yourself, there are questions. So both identify who you, both of you are for the record, and then we'll have some questions for you.
I'm Ward Peters.
And I'm Chris Kaling. We're both with PMGM Architecture.
Okay. Councillor Donald.
Thanks very much. I'd like to have council and those watching to hear this story a little bit, so if you don't mind. I need to bring the story up by asking questions. So first question is, how many times did you appear before Planning Commission?
We appeared twice.
So what happened after the first meeting? Why did you have to come back a second time?
There was this is a discretionary use, and there was a concern by the next door neighbor that the zero side yard would infringe on her access from the back of the property to the front.
Thank you. So did Planning Commission, the first time that you were there, have any issue with what was proposed with the medical clinic, the living quarters, and so on?
No.
Could you describe just a little bit about what that building is and what the doctor in this case had in mind for it?
Sure. So the building being proposed is a two-story building. The ground floor of the building will be a medical clinic used mainly for consulting services, and the doctor will actually be performing procedures in the hospital across the street. And the upper level is proposed to be a residential unit for the doctor himself and could potentially be rented out in the future.
So I think in the beginning, the doctor was looking at his own personal respite so that between surgery and visiting, he had a place to go that was close to the hospital. Is that accurate?
Yes, because he's often on call.
But in the future, made it clear it could become a rental.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So could you now tell me what happened after you were sent back from Planning Commission the first time? So what happened between you, administration, the neighbor, whomever?
Thank you. Administration set up a meeting between us and the neighbor, and between that meeting, as well as a conversation with the general contractor who's planning on working on this, Dr. Surrey has agreed to do some work on the neighbor's property to allow her to access the front of her property by moving a shed and extending a concrete sidewalk.
If I remember correctly, at Planning Commission, what happened when the decision was made to push back, Dr. Surrey immediately went to the resident who addressed us, introduced himself, and the two of them had a conversation right away, which led to another conversation.
Correct.
So what has brought you back today after having those meetings?
Well, we wanted to be here just to make sure if there was any questions or concerns that we were here.
Okay. And could you tell me what happened between, say, the doctor and the neighbor that has brought a slight change to the project?
So yeah, so we met with the neighbor and we discussed shifting the building as far to the right as we can. There's a bit of extra clearance on either side of the building, basically play, to ensure that we have the room. So we shifted it to the right to make sure the neighbor had a little extra space, minimum access for a person to walk along that. And then once again, our contractor had discussed with her some provisions for her site so she could access from the other side yard as well.
Would it be your opinion that the doctor's happy and the neighbor's happy?
Yes, that would be
That would be fair.
Thank you very much. That's good for me.
Thank you, Councillor Dowell. Other questions of the delegation? Thank you so much for appearing and answering questions. We'll now go to report 16-124, which is a discretionary use application for 4028 Dudney Avenue. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you. If I have a seconder, I will speak to this.
Seconder. Councillor Young.
Thanks very much. So I wanted you to hear the story a little bit. In other words, what we had was a concerned neighbor that came before us. There was no issue with the clinic. The doctor works at the Pasqua, works long hours at the Pasqua, and wanted to build a building for his patients so that he could access them easily, excuse me, but also a place that he could have a little bit of respite. Neighbor was concerned about access. You can see that people got together, found a solution, come back, and we have what we consider at Planning Commission a very good building in an area that is zoned exactly for what is before you. In other words, this is a medical zone. This is not the only building that provides medical services across the street from the Pasqua, but this is an additional one. Just to fill in a little bit, the neighbor had invested some money in that home. It was a rental facility that is also serving very well. I think we found a compromise. I think it's important that everybody hear the story of how people get together to work. I'm very pleased to bring this forward.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Speakers to the report. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We move to committee reports. Executive Committee, Councillor Murray, on a capital improvement partnership agreement with the province.
Thanks, Your Worship. I rise to bring forward CR 16-125, and this is that capital improvement partnership agreement between the Saskatchewan Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure and the City of Regina.
Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hawkins.
Thanks, Councillor Hawkins. So the recommendations coming from the Executive Committee, Your Worship, this was of October 5th. The Executive Director of Transportation Utilities or the designate be authorized to prepare, negotiate, review, and approve that the City of Regina enter into a 5-year capital improvement partnership agreement with the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure based on the following scope. A, the Ministry would be responsible for the full costs associated with the installation of signals, the full annual maintenance and operating costs of the signals, and will fully cover costs associated with any major malfunction, major repairs, or required upgrades. Goes on to a Part B, that the Executive Director of Transportation Utilities or designate be authorized to amend, extend, or terminate the agreement as may be required throughout the term of the agreement. And a Part C, Your Worship, that the Executive Director of Transportation Utilities be authorized to prepare, negotiate, review, amend, and approve any other ancillary documents related to the agreement that are necessary to give full effect to the agreement. And then in Part 2, it goes on further that the city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement, any such ancillary documents to the agreement after review by the city solicitor. Your worship, those are the recommendations coming from executive, and there was quite a bit of discussion as we went through due to some of the relationship we've had in the past where things end up falling onto the lap of the city, and we've been assured that through this, these agreements are being carefully sought out to ensure that there is protection to the city, and these are situations we've run into in the past and have successfully worked through. So that would be the report, Your Worship, and the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Are the speakers to the report? Councillor Young.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. On page 3, it says that the agreement would have a period of performance of 5 years. What happens after 5 years?
Ms. Gizmo?
Through your worship, if the signals were to remain in place, nothing had been altered, like an interchange or something put into place, then a new agreement would be negotiated with the ministry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Other speakers? I have a question related to the absolute assurance that there is no cost to the city of Regina for maintaining on the capital side or operating side for the life of this agreement. And if we have to change the technology or change the, because of wear and tear on the lights, that we are not responsible for any funding at all. Ms. Gizmo?
Your worship, the contract that will be negotiated with the ministry will cover full cost of the operation, maintenance, and installation of the signals throughout the 5-year agreement.
So in other words, this isn't really like the Urban Highway Connector program where we were told, we're going to give you something that's going to look really good, and that you would give it to you, city, to maintain. In this case, it's a highway or street, and they never actually honor the agreement to fix it. So there's nothing to do with that. Is that correct, Ms. Gizmo?
Your worship, these signals are actually located outside the city limits and would be the jurisdiction of the ministry.
So are the highways in some cases too. So, okay. Good, thank you for that. I'll call the question on the report. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Executive Committee report once again. Councillor Murray on the Buffalo Pond Water Treatment Plant proposed project.
Thanks, Your Worship. You're getting the last little bit out of me here because it's a busy night tonight for the guy who's on his way out. CR 16-126, the Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Corporation and the Clean Water Wastewater Fund, that's a proposed project. Your Worship, at the October 5th meeting, we had a recommendation coming from executive that the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, or his designate be authorized to provide approval to the Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Corporation to submit an application under the Clean Water Wastewater Fund for the electrical upgrade and capital project. And if we can have a seconder.
Seconder for, please. Councillor Hawkins.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is much needed upgrades to the Buffalo Pound Water Treatment Plant, and important that we get these through. Obviously, we've got some access to funding available for us, and so that would be the recommendations coming from the Executive Committee meeting. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Are there other speakers to the report? Councillor O'Donnell?
Thank you. Can I ask, as we are partners with the City of Moose Jaw, what the status is of this report with them?
Thank you, Your Worship, members of the City Council. So the City of Moose Jaw approved this on October the 3rd.
So they're on, they have agreed as we would, what's before us, is that correct?
Mr. Ray?
Your Worship, that's correct. They have provided their approval, so each partner has to provide approval before the Water Corporation can proceed with the application. And that is happened in the case of Moose Jaw.
Thanks very much. If I could ask, if this was to be successful, where would we find money to pay our portion of the project?
Mr. Ray?
Your Worship, members of City Council, so as you'll recall, we've established the Buffalo Pound Corporation as a independent water utility owned by the two cities, and the business model that we've put in place is to be self-funding. But having said that, they just commenced operations on January 1. So they will be in a position, we believe, depending on timing, we expect that they'll be in a position to fund, if not 100%, very close to 100% of their contribution. So you'll recall that the funding formula is 50% from the federal government, 25% from the provincial, 25% from the Water Corporation, which is some $10 million they're very close to having that, and with a few more months under their belt, they will actually be able to. If for some reason they were a little bit short, then we would, they have borrowing capacity under our unanimous membership agreement, of which they would be, the borrowing amount would be, the city would be behind that for them.
Okay, thanks. If I could just be, drill down a little bit. Specifically, there's a utility, and specifically there are reserves. Is that where the money would come from?
Mr. Ray?
Yes, the new formula, or the new approach is that the Buffalo Pound Water Corporation does charge its customers, which happen to be its owners as well, the two cities, a rate that's sufficient enough to allow them to build reserves to be self-sustainable and have a long-term capital plan for their sustainability.
Perfect. So I just wanted to identify this as one, reserves serve a huge purpose for us. We have an opportunity to put a large-scale improvement to a utility that serves a lot of customers, and we can do that without standing here having to raise our hands for more money. It's built in. My second point on this is that not everybody understands what a water or utility bill means. This is just an opportunity to enhance that knowledge. I'm all for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Other speakers? Councillor Hawkins?
Thank you, Your Worship. I wonder if the administration could just tell us why this project is so critical.
Mr. Ray?
Yes, I'll start from the accountant's point of view, and there may be others from the utility perspective, but the current power delivery system to the plant is 40 or 50 years old, and it really doesn't meet today's standards for redundancy and backup. And so this will ensure that they have a very sustainable and constant power supply for at least for up to another 25 years. I'm getting the nod, so.
Can you tell us what would happen if the power system failed?
Mr. Ray? Or Ms. Gazemo, how's that?
I'm gonna ask Ms.
We'll go to the
Gazemo.
expert here. We'll go to the real expert.
Through your worship, if you recall, about a year ago, we did have a power disruption. What it does is it impacts the pumps that pump the water from the water treatment plant to the city, and it can disrupt our water supply that we receive here in the city. We've got reservoirs and access to wells that can tie us over for some period of time, but a delay of too long of a period would impact our ability to supply water to our customers.
How long is too long?
Ms. Gazemo?
Through your worship, I believe it's approximately 2 days. I could be mistaken, but that's what I recall.
So, Your Worship, the point that I wish to bring out and has been brought out is that this is absolutely essential, that the backup we have now leaves us only a 2-day reserve, and that unless we get on with this, we could be caught short of water. One other question for the administration. I can't imagine that we won't get this grant. I can't imagine there could be a higher priority dealing with water, but in the event that we don't, what is the plan to make sure that we have better backup for electricity for our water supply?
Mr. Ray?
Your Worship, members of City Council, so as you'll recall, the corporation's been established. It has a board of directors. They're working very diligently to put in place long-term plans, sustainable capital plans. So with their new funding arrangement where they build their own reserves, they should be in a position, and this project would be a priority regardless of whether they were successful in getting the grant. And it's number one on their list of things to accomplish, and they will be working diligently to make that happen as part of a bigger plan for the long-term sustainability of the plant.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd always be in favor of applying for a grant to produce an upgrade, but in this particular case, I think that the possibility of a grant here could not be more timely, and I'm anxious for the city to have a proper electrical backup to preserve our water supply.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Fraser?
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just this is such an important opportunity for our city, so I really hope it comes through. I really see this as kind of preventative maintenance. You know, we have a really important facility, a crucial facility like no other, and ultimately, if we don't look after it, it's going to cost more in the long run. So we're talking about tens of millions of dollars, over $40 million here. It's a big chunk of money, but ultimately, if we're able to implement this now, it's going to be a cost savings over the long term. So I really hope that our application is successful. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Other speakers? Councillor Young?
Thank you, Your Worship. This work will then take them for another 25 years. This is what I read in the report. But this water treatment plant may have other changes and upgrades that are going to be made in the near future. Will this work be redundant, or will this work stand even if other changes are made?
Mr. Ray?
Your Worship, members of City Council, so just to clarify, the work, this piece of work is to ensure sustainable power supply over the 25-year period. Having said that, there is significant opportunity and work to be done with the plant. I believe it's some 60 or 80 years old, and so it does need significant ongoing upgrade and maintenance so that it will be sustainable well into the future. And that's part of that work that's currently being done by the new board of directors. So there will be work. So this work is not redundant. It's needed regardless of where they go to from here, which could be anything from a major refurbishment of the plant or to even as far as a complete replacement. But either way, they will need this sustainable water supply.
Thank you.
Or power supply, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Other speakers? Councillor Murray, if you could take the seat, please, appreciate it.
Your Worship, I've never had to call you out of order, so make sure you do a good job.
So
I don't want to have to do it
don't
this
start
time.
now. Okay, good, good.
You're on.
I rise, of course, in complete support of the project, simply to mention that, as others have, that this is an absolutely critical investment in infrastructure, not just for Regina, not just for Moose Jaw, but for much of southern Saskatchewan that uses this water as well. So I can't imagine this not being a priority for the federal government, given that their funding for water and wastewater projects is a priority for them. So I see this as being quite important. I've spoken several times with Minister Goodale about the need to have this go forward, and I'm glad, Councillor Young, you mentioned this issue of this change being made, this upgrade to the electrical system would happen in any case, because there is a view of an application to go forward to upgrade the entire facility. We had some issues of water a couple of summers ago where we had some huge difficulties. The investment to ensure that does not happen again by new technology is critical, notwithstanding the building itself is 40 or 50 or 60 years old. So this is a critical piece of investment that's needed to ensure our quality of life, the health and safety of Regina residents, Moose Jaw residents, and southern Saskatchewan residents continues in this way. So I'm sure members of council will support this, but it is a critical piece of investment. Thank you.
Thanks, Your Worship.
Other speakers to the report? Councilor Murray, do you want to close debate?
I'll close debate if everyone's done. Your Worship, just it is critical. When it comes to water, Regina is very unique. Unlike many other places, we are not on a natural body of water, so our water comes from a great distance away. That means that it has to be held at an extremely high level when we give it to our clients, but also when we take it back, we have to bring it back to an extremely high level because it's the only flow of Wascana. Your Worship, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for those citizens who are out there and for those candidates door knocking and you hear from people our water rates are too high, that's the reason why our water rates are the way they are. It's a flow-through cost, Your Worship, and gaining access to be able to upgrade this is frankly, it's very important and 100% supported. So thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. You've closed debate, so there is no further discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The last report of Planning Commission this term is a discretionary use application for the Green Falls Drive. Councilor O'Donnell.
Thanks very much. Again, if I could have a second, I'll speak to this.
Seconder for it, please. Councilor Flagel.
Thank you very much. So you may recognize the address because Earlier, council agreed to a different development that did not proceed. So now what you have before us is a 65-unit, 130-stall development. It is consistent with the previous plan, except that the density has changed a little bit, and we had no issue with this. The Planning Commission would seek concurrence.
Speakers to the report. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Could someone just speak to what medium density is? I think this project looks good, but where does this fall in the range of medium density? Thanks.
Ms. Harlock?
Through your worship, I'll ask Mr. Searle to answer that, please.
Mr. Searle?
Your worship, the OCP categorizes 3 types of density: low, medium, and high. And it's based on units per hectare. So anything less than 25 units per hectare is low density, 25 to 50 is medium density, and above 50 is high density. And so the zoning designations that are applied to the property are consistent with those density categories, and applications are reviewed on a case-by-case basis to ensure compliance.
Okay, and for those watching at home, what are we talking about here for density per hectare?
Mr. Searle?
Your worship, I don't have the specific total in front of me, but we can certainly calculate that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Other speakers? Councillor Burnett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question on transportation and access on the east end, that I think now that Victoria Avenue's widened and starting to flow well, and we know the bypass is going to take a lot off, but there's getting to be more and more density in the southeast, especially in the Greens in that area. And the only one area that's kind of left where there's a bit of a bottleneck is coming up Arcola, going over the bridge. A lot of times there's big backups of traffic trying to turn left. Do we keep a regular monitoring of traffic flow as the community grows? Because to make sure that if we have to accelerate some of our longer-term plans to accommodate the increase in traffic?
Ms. Harlock?
Through your worship, that is correct. We do monitor those things, and right now we are doing a study next year to look at Arcola and that specific issue at the bridge. So we'll have more information towards the end of 2017 once that study is done and what improvements would need to be implemented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Other speakers? I'd like to follow up to that question from you, Councillor Burnett, just related to the bridge at Arcola. That would be a bottleneck, but is that the only portion that's being reviewed, or is it Arcola itself? Because there was a discussion a few years ago about an extra lane on either side on Arcola Avenue. And just wondering if that's part of that review, or is it just the bridge?
Through you, your worship, it is going to be Arcola, and so we'll be looking at all of the traffic impacts that we're seeing on Arcola.
So it would be the city limits, if you will, on Arcola going west down to downtown. Ms.
Your
Harlock?
worship, I'm not sure the exact, I believe it is the whole, but I'd ask Ms. Folk to clarify that.
Ms. Folk?
Through you, your worship, and members of council, that is correct. It is a corridor.
And when would that report be started and finished? Ms. Folk?
Through you, your worship, as Ms. Harlock said, it is on our work plan for 2017. I don't have the specific corridor in front of me today, but we can endeavor to find that for you.
But it begins next year.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. Other speakers to the report? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We have one information report from Executive Committee.
Your worship, I'll move receive and file, or I think that would be the recommended disposition of the report.
Would you just give a quick overview, Councilor Murray, about what's in the report?
Sure. IR 1610 would be the value increase for engineering services for residential road renewal program, package 1. So the just by way of a little bit of the background of this, the long-term RRRP that was established in 2014 is funded by a 1% dedicated mill rate increase until the year of 2019, 25% towards the street infrastructure renewal program. Your worship, do you want me to go into more detail, or
that's good? We'll
sufficient
discussion. Seconder for the report, Councilor Young, you second it? You can speak to it as well. Yep. Go right ahead.
Thank you, your worship. This is just an opportunity to clarify some things for people that may be watching this. People don't realize what goes into preparing a residential road program for a year, and I think this report talks about the kind of work that has to be done. Could you just give a little bit of information about what has to be done and how soon before you actually work on a road you start doing this kind of backup information?
Ms. Gazemo?
Through your worship, we endeavor to develop a 5-year program for the residential road renewal program that identifies that will be considered for work. Typically, we start 1 to 2 years in advance of a project being executed to do work such as surveying and design, looking at the undergrounds and so forth. So it's, as I said, 1 to 2 years before you're likely to see work occurring on a road, and sometimes it can take 2 seasons to complete the construction on a road.
Okay. And then one of the motions that was just recently passed asked that a greater proportion of that road fund go toward poor roads. And when we asked when would that report be able to come forward so we know when that would start, you said Q4 of 2017. So people are asking, why does it take a year? And I think you've just answered that, but would you add anything to that?
Ms. Gazemo?
Through your worship, the only thing I would add is it will take some analysis and to look at the impact of making a choice like that and to fully inform council of what that change, what the impact would be so that you can make an informed decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Bryce?
Thank you. Do we have a list somewhere or a map that tells us the what the roads are like in each area?
Ms. Gazemo?
Through your worship, for the whole city, no. In a report that we brought on the residential road renewal and that we will bring annually in that, an annual update to that program, we will identify locations that are identified in the next 5 years. So we'll continue to update that list and add locations to that list each year.
Thank you. And will we make this available online so when people are asking, when is my street going to be done, they can actually Google it and actually find out when their street will be done?
Ms. Gazemo?
Through your worship, that's not something we currently have, but something we can certainly look into.
Thank you. I know we've been talking about that for a while, but I still would like us to make sure that that is available for the residents so that they know when their street's going to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Just a clarification. I know that when Councillor Young brought forward her motion to change the ratio of funding of the 1% away from preventive maintenance more toward these roads, we had a map, and it showed the condition of many of these streets. And I think that's the map that I thought that Councillor Bryce was referring to. We actually do, I think we do, is that correct? There is a map, maybe another one that shows when those work will be done, which wouldn't be citywide. Just to clarify that, Ms. Gazemo.
Yes, my apologies, that is correct. We do have some condition data, but that gets updated on a regular basis. But you are correct, that does exist.
Just for clarification for those
Yep.
watching on television, so that's good. Okay, good. Other speakers to the information report? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Murray, the last item on the report. On our
Your worship, this is the last item. This is also the last bylaw I'm going to move. And so I did ask the clerk, deputy city clerk, if I could get it bronze. And she said no. So I said, can I get it gilded? And she said no. But she did give me this highlighter. So I'm going to take a few minutes here and make sure I make it special.
Sure, let's go with that.
So I move, seconded by Councillor Burnett, that bylaw number 2016-66 be introduced and read a first time.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I move, seconded by Councillor Hawkins, that bylaw 2016-66 be read a second time.
Any comments? Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I move, seconded by Councillor O'Donnell, that council hereby consents to bylaw number 2016-66 going to third reading at this meeting.
All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously.
I move, seconded by Councillor Young, that bylaw 2016-66 be read a third time.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
I'd like to move adjournment,
No,
Your Worship.
no, not at all.
Not yet?
No
Oh,
adjournment
good.
yet. Yeah, we thought you could get out of it that way. You maybe in just a moment. So this has been an emotional evening, and it's not over yet because this is the last meeting of this council. Next week we have a municipal election, and I thought it might be an opportune time for anybody who'd like to stand up to have a reflection of those 4 years we've been together as a team. And I'm not going to be regimented to go by ward. Just those who raise their hand who wish to speak. I'll give you the floor to speak. Who wants to begin? Councillor Burnett.
No, I think when I reflect back, that I think this term on council was certainly a bit of an eye-opener for me, that I think back to the very first meeting where I think we were late on a budget. We were talking about a stadium, wastewater treatment, pension plans, and I kind of walked out of there thinking, oh my God, and then the next round of calendar changes came where every night was booked for about 2 years with briefings from engineers and financial people and consultants. And I think what impressed me the most is what an honor it was to work with all of you on council. I think we really gelled nice as a team, and especially the support of administration, because I know I don't know how many, I keep telling people we log 50-hour weeks, but my wife challenges me on that. But every night I know administration was always there supporting us and making things happen. And when I look across the country at some of the other councils, I don't think they could have ever handled an agenda like this. They tend to want to fight amongst each other and grandstand and grandiose, where I really felt privileged to be with a team that just wanted to get settled down and get the work done and improve and make sure that our city moves forward, because we were in kind of an unprecedented growth period where the cities normally don't grow this fast, this quick. And I've always fundamentally believed government needs to work at the pace of business, not be an obstacle to prevent and stop a lot of this growth. So I just wanted to say thank you to all my colleagues, and I do hope I'm back again for another round. But I just wanted to say what an honor and pleasure it was to be able to be on council during this time frame, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Flagel.
Nobody else? Okay, 10 years I've been on council, and 4 years ago I got reelected, and the next 2 years were probably the busiest of the total 10. We did the stadium, the wastewater treatment plant, the RRI. We talked about the civic pension plan, the RM lands, OCP, global transportation hub. We dealt with it here. But this group and the huge group behind you, your support staff, were absolutely instrumental in putting it all together for us so we can make these decisions. And we forget how much time they spend, and I want to thank all of them for doing that. And we don't always agree, and we always fight, and we have an argument, and then we make up, and everything seems to be pretty good, and then we fight again. But it comes to the point of we're all trying to do a better job for the city, and that seems to be what the major focus is. The media tries to be very fair, very eloquent in some of their things, and then they also try to, in their media way, have to dig up some dirt if there is dirt, and just dig, and that's their job as well. So we respect that to a point, and we want to make sure that everybody gets the fair and right information and has that for them. The residents of my ward have been able to see me out there a lot, and also it allows everybody a chance to come and talk to us. We don't realize how much we're out in the public until you're not out in the public. And then people go, well, where'd you go? You were always here. Everybody was there. So Brian, Councillor Burnett, you're right in the 50 hours a week, because you're probably sending emails at midnight, like, well, not you, you're in bed by 9, but sorry, I'm sending emails late at night. Everybody is. But it's all for the betterment of the city. So I want to just thank everybody in this room and all of those that participated throughout the last 4 years. It's been a great ride, and I'm hoping again to be back in after the election on Wednesday. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Flagel. Other speakers? Councillor Bryce.
Thank you. I'd like to first of all thank the residents of Ward 7 for the honor of representing them here at council. I know we don't always agree. Same with administration. We don't always agree, but I found this council is very respectful. It doesn't matter what the issue is. Everybody has the right to their own opinion and to represent their ward how they feel fit. So, and I do appreciate how respectful we all are to each other as well as administration. So thank you all. I hope this isn't my last meeting, but if it is, thank you all. It's been a pleasure serving with you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryce. Other? Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Your Worship, fellow councillors. As I think back over the last 4 years, I want to say what a privilege it's been, a life-defining privilege to be a member of this council. It's been a privilege to work with the residents of Ward 2 who've contacted me with big problems and small problems and advice and sometimes encouragement. They've been a great community to work with. It's been a privilege to work with city administration As I said on other occasions, sometimes I ask pointed questions, but I only do that because you have very good answers. You serve our citizens very well. It's been a privilege, too, to work on the large and complex files they've already been described: the wastewater plant, the stadium, the pension plan, the service agreements fees, all of those large and complex files. One of the things that's made us able to handle those files, I believe, is that we've been a projects council, not an ideological council, and I believe that's served our citizens well. But most of all, I want to say to my colleagues on council, it's been a privilege to work with you. Councillor Bryce is right. There's been a great deal of respect, and I think that that respect is the engine that's made this council work. But I also think there's now more than that. There's real friendship here, and for that, I'm grateful from the bottom of my heart, and I thank you. Many of us are facing the electorate in the next week. For all of you, and maybe a little bit for myself, I wish many happy returns. And for those of you who are leaving us, I hope you have a happy and adventurous journey. Thank you all for the wonderful time I've spent with you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thanks very much. I want to, first of all, speak a little bit about a gift. I found that for the last number of years, I've been able to go out to an awful lot of city events and represent the city, represent people that I would have never gone to before. In every one of those events, I found that there were people who were very passionate about their event, very passionate about their activity, but who sought to make it a welcoming activity, sought out new Canadians to make them feel welcome in our city. And I always walked away from each one of those events feeling much better about my city. So to the people of Ward 8, I want to thank you for that opportunity. To my colleagues, you know, we've had some full Henry Baker halls a few times. It's been a little tense in here and it's been a little heated in here. But I take a lot of comfort in two things. One, that whatever decision was made, and by the way, as with Sharon Bryce, I didn't agree with everyone, but with every decision that was made, it was not personal. It should never be personal, and it, in my view, wasn't personal. The second thing that all of you did that I liked very much is you tried as best we could to make this a welcoming atmosphere, whether it was asking questions of delegation to give them a chance to speak, whether it was going out and shaking a hand or greeting people, little people or older people or anybody. I think that's very important that people feel welcome in here. And as my colleague here said, I want to thank all of you for friendship. I want to mention to the staff, I think you all could have made a different choice. I think you made a difficult choice to work in municipal government. It has to be a little bit more challenging than the normal route, whether it is because of us or because of all sorts of other people. But I will tell you to your face that I have never met any of you that were not professional, that were not caring, were not compassionate, and worked extremely hard. It was wonderful to be with you, and I wish all of you the very best.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Fundura.
Thank you, Worship. First, I would say goodbye to Terry. Second, Waterizer, Sean. It was great working with everyone. It's not an easy job. You come into this position not knowing, you don't go to school for this. So how do you handle yourself? You get elected, you get dropped in the dog pound, a little kitty cat, and you got to work your way out. It's challenging and it's interesting. Working with citizens is always a good thing because they always tell you how they feel, and they have the right to tell you that. Second, well, going forward is thank you to my family. Without my family, my wife, my children, the support that they gave me to do this job is not possible. Because as my kids say to me, there's a doorbell ringing, and they don't recognize who that is. There's someone coming in to talk to me. And that's civic politics. You're on the street, you're there with people. Around this oval here, or the half moon, or whatever you want to call this thing. It's been great. 2 terms, I've learned a lot. If I look at myself, my life as a young immigrant coming to this country, having a chance to do this. Not too many people can say that they've done it. And I'm blessed, and I'm happy, and I'm thankful to all of you around this oval here, administration, to teach me and encouragement. I always remember Council O'Donnell, just do your best. Make sure, do your best, and just, because we come into this chamber, we come in one vote, and that is a difficult challenge. Cannot persuade everyone to go my way. So again, good luck to everyone. Good luck in post-council life, and God bless Terry and everyone else. Thank you to the residents of Ward 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fundura. Councillor Fraser.
Okay, thank you, through Mr. Mayor. Lots of thank yous. First off, family and friends. I wouldn't have got the opportunity to try this job if not for a lot of people helping me out. Next on my list here, citizens. Hundreds of people have contacted me over the last 4 years, mostly from World 3, but some from across the city. And I'll say that's been the favorite part of this job for me, definitely is getting to work with people. The vast, vast majority of people have been totally respectful, you know, even if they're challenging me on something. That's the part of politics that I like the most, is a bit of challenge. Third, to administration, thank you so much. People don't always realize how much work happens behind the scenes. The vast majority of making the city run is our city administration, and I think I leave this job feeling like we're really in really good hands. And finally, council, I'd like to thank working with everyone. I've learned something from each and every one of you. And I leave this job 4 years older, but I feel like I'm many years wiser, and a lot of that is from lessons I've learned from the people around this table. So thanks for that. I leave this job feeling grateful for my experience. This is something that a lot of people probably think about doing and don't get a chance to do. I studied political science. I've said this is the 10th time I've actually run for something in this job. Politics has always been part of my life, and I'm really, really grateful to have had this experience. I leave this job excited. There's going to be a lot of hot races around the city, but Ward 3 is going to be a really interesting race full of really great candidates, and I'm really excited to see what a new person can come in, what they can bring to this job. And I'm looking forward to the first day I'm not the councillor to call and ask a question about something. And most importantly, I leave this job feeling optimistic. You know, this has been a transitional change time for the city, more so probably than it has been for decades and decades, and I think there's a lot more change to come. And I'm optimistic. I love Regina, and I'm optimistic that Regina is headed in a good direction. So thanks to everyone.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Other speakers? Councillor Young.
So 4 years ago, there were some unknowns for me. And even though I've been on a lot of boards, and in the past 40 years that I've been in public service, it's still new and different. And this chamber is daunting when you walk into it for the first time. So there's three things that I think of as being learnings for me. And I think this is all about learning and listening. And the first one is something that most people don't know. They get glimpses of it when they watch us on TV, and that's the expertise of our staff. If it were not for the work that you do, the research you do, the reports that you write, and the incessant questions that we have for you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And I think that you do a fantastic job, and there are people who aren't even in here this evening who come in every once in a while to answer questions for us. And so I just knew that there was something there that was keeping this city as top-notch as it was, and I actually saw that over the 4 years. So thank you for all the questions you've answered that I've asked. Secondly is the colleagues. When you join a group, some groups you feel like you become part of the group and it's like family, and other groups you're just part of the group and people are nice to each other, but it doesn't gel. And I have felt more like this is a family, even when I disagree totally with how you might have voted or your stand on an issue. And even though we may not vote the same way, which I think is healthy to not have all of the votes be all yes votes, when it's over, it's over. And we're people, and we care about our families, we care about our health, we care about each other. And that was something that I didn't expect and that I have enjoyed thoroughly. And the third one is the people in Ward 4 and beyond. You go to a lot of events, you have a lot of people call you, email you, and talk to you, and I kept a paper on everyone that called or emailed me in the last 4 years, and the stack is quite high, and it's wonderful to be able to get to know people that you did not know before you took this job, and people who stop you on the street and as if you know them and ask you questions. And even in the ladies' room, I get stopped sometimes and asked questions. So it's been a wonderful experience to just meet all the people that I've met. And so thank you to the people of Ward 1 that gave me this opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think about 13 years ago when I came in this place, and I remember not really understanding the opportunity that was before me or the fortune that I had to get elected. I truly did not understand that. I did not know what it meant to be elected. I did not have a clue. Soon I figured out that you need to know how to run a meeting. You need to know how to do things. You guys see me as this polished professional, pretty high-end type feller. You see me that way. But I remember one of our staff in the clerk's office, you can't pull me out of order just yet. I remember one of the staff in the clerk's office saying, "Councillor Murray, your shirt's tucked into your underwear." It's true. It's a true story. From that moment forward, Navis, you remember that too. You heard these stories. But from that moment forward, I realized that I'll be okay. There's people that take care of me. Those people that are filling potholes in the roads, those people at 7,000 are answering the calls and making sure things get done. The people in the executive offices that get the stuff that council comes up with actually through and make it happen. The people are what make this work. City of Regina is just a bunch of roads and pipes, but it's the people that make this what it truly is. And for a simple fellow like me to get the opportunity to do this was truly an honor. It was truly a blessing that I had no idea how fortunate I am. I still don't. I still wonder, how did I ever get to do what I got to do? But at the end of the day, we're coming up to an election. The one thing I can guarantee to every one of you here and to all those people who are out watching on TV, the one thing I can guarantee is the electorate make great decisions. The people that they put behind these chairs, behind these microphones, are fantastic people. In the 4 terms that I've had the opportunity to serve, I have worked with some of the most fantastic people. Some are still here, some have moved on, some have passed away. We've lost Councillor Badham, we've lost Councillor Hinks, so we've felt that sting. But we've gained new friends. We've seen some of our colleagues be defeated to be replaced with people who served harder and more diligently and worked for their community beyond measure. And so for that, I'm truly thankful to get to hang around these people and call these people my family. You're more than friends, you're family. And to the staff, to our media, to all of our friends, and to especially those citizens of Ward 6 who gave me that privilege to be able to be here, I say thank you. I will never forget the good fortune I had to be here. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Could you take my seat, please?
Your Worship.
Thank you very much. You know, what a gift it is to be elected to public office, to serve the citizens of the city. What a pleasure it has been. I know we've all said this in various ways. So I have a couple of comments to make, and I want to direct them firstly to Councillor Fraser and Councillor Murray, to thank both of you for your time in public office. It is difficult for family, difficult very much on a young family to deal with. Things change. We feel we've met our goals and objectives, but thank you for your service. You leave on a high note. You leave on very much a sense of integrity and working very hard as a team. And to the rest of council here, I say it has been a privilege to work with you. When we came here 4 years ago, I think the objective was, and certainly my thought was, to build a team. To build a team that was respectful, and others have said this, disagree but be agreeable, to work together to the same objectives, to speak to the same vision of the city. The nuts and bolts of the work can change and be moved around as we go through different reports. That's all well and good. But the respect, the understanding, the working together, seeing the big vision is so vital to grow our city. And for that, I'm very proud of being a part of that, being one of 11 people who shared the vision, wanted to move our city forward. We get here today, after 4 years, taking care of some monumental issues that some we never even thought about, like a referendum. Never thought that would ever happen. The stadium on time, on budget. The wastewater plant on time, under budget. We protected the taxpayers, those who work for our city, we protected them for their pension plan. We solved that problem. We untied that Gordian knot and got it done. And for those who have been on council for a long time, we're talking back in the 1990s, they were talking of issues happening. Councilor Murray knows this because he takes care of pensions for us. Incredibly successful doing that. We took care of issues with the Arm of Sherwood and moved that to a higher level. It's not a perfect one, but we got together, we speak to each other, we work together, and things happen that are positive for our region. So very, very important. Our downtown, we focused on our downtown. Sustained growth, our official community plan, our cultural plan. The list goes on and on of things we did together. And we saw the vision to move it forward together. So we all agree that's all well and good. But as others have said, and I'm going to repeat this, you know, we do the talking. We do the reading. We stand up here and we talk in front of a microphone. But it's the administration that does the work for us. They implement, we provide policy alternatives, we make a decision on policy. So to the administration, an incredible thank you for following this crazy roadmap of discussions that happen each and every day. At budget time, big reports happening. You help frame things in a way that gets the work done. So thank you so very much, everybody in this room and beyond this room who work all the time. Thank you so much for what you've done. It is tremendously rewarding and an honor to have you help us make the right decisions each and every day. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to say thank you to the citizens of Regina for giving the trust to me over the last 4 years. Thank you for those who live in each ward to have elected you to represent them. They couldn't have made a better choice. Thank you very much, everyone. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Your Worship, I'd love to adjourn this meeting.
Councillor Fraser seconds that.
Yes.
All those in favor? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone.